What is up? Welcome back to my channel. I have not done a sit down vlog in a long time, like probably since last year. I feel like I have a lot to talk about, and I've gone back and forth many times trying to figure out if I should do this vlog, if this would be helpful, or if it would be just awkward and a waste of time. So I literally called my husband today and I was like, okay, what do you think about this vlog? I truly just want to, share my story if it could be a help to somebody, because I've always said, what I've gone through has been like just a lot. It's been really hard for me to process through everything that has happened over the last few years. But if I was able to, encourage someone else with my story, then it would be so much more worth it. And I just want to be able to, comfort someone if I'm able to. And if my story is helpful for literally one person, then I would just love that, because what I went through, I felt just so alone and embarrassed and honestly just really ashamed of my body. And so I've just had it on my heart a lot recently to talk about this experience I went through, because I think it's really easy to look at somebody that's pregnant and think, oh, they got pregnant so easily, or I bet they've never walked through any loss, or they've probably not had any issues getting pregnant. And that feels so lonely. And I want to be able to share my story if it's helpful for, like I said, literally anyone. I feel like God had me go through this for a reason. And I don't fully understand why I went through this. But I do know that I have a love for this baby like I didn't even know was possible, because I'm so grateful, and I haven't even met him yet. And I'm just so incredibly thankful for every day that I do get to carry him, just because I've went through a lot of pain to get where I am today. So basically, I just wanted to share my story. And so if you don't want to hear somebody talk about loss or sadness, miscarriage, all that stuff, probably don't want to continue listening. But I'm already getting emotional. These pregnancy hormones, man. Let's get into it. So I'm currently 25 years old. I will be 26 in December. And I had a pretty crazy start to my adult life. So when I was 18 years old, I met somebody, and we got married when I was 19 years old. We got married in August, and in December I got pregnant. And it was a very unhealthy relationship, very abusive in many different ways. And it's not something I talk about very often, but it's definitely something that has shaped me into who I am today. But anyways, we got married the end of August, and then in December I got pregnant in January, and we were far away from my family, his family. We were pretty much all alone where we were living. And so we told all of my family right away. We told his family right away, just because it was kind of like this shocking news, because we were all alone. We had just gotten married. I was literally 19 years old. And miscarriage just wasn't something that was talked about. And I didn't know that you really wait till you get a certain amount of weeks to tell people, or people say you're supposed to. I didn't know there was like a safe zone. Anyways, so I took a while to find a doctor, because I had just moved somewhere. I didn't have a doctor. But anyways, fast forward a few weeks, something started feeling a little off and not right. I had been really sick with morning sickness, which was normal, but I just had this feeling in my heart that something wasn't right. And then later on in the day, I started having a lot of pain in my lower abdominal area, a lot of pain, and I have a really high pain tolerance. And so I had told him that I thought I needed to go into the hospital just to get checked, because something didn't feel right in my heart, and I just knew something was not right, and I was in a lot of pain. So we went to the hospital. It was a military hospital, did not receive good care at all. They didn't want to do an ultrasound. They basically confirmed that I was pregnant through I peed in a cup, and obviously I was pregnant. I had found out several weeks ago. So they didn't want to do a blood test. They did not want to do an ultrasound, even though I was telling them, and I was in a lot of pain, and they had told me that I had just pulled a muscle and there was nothing to do about it. They had told me if the pain didn't go away in 24 hours, if it increased, to come back. And so I just felt really nervous that they wouldn't do an ultrasound for me. They didn't want to check anything. They just told me that I pulled a muscle and basically gave me pain medicine, which I didn't take because I knew something wasn't right. So we left because they didn't want to do anything. They wouldn't do anything. And within a few hours, I was just in excruciating pain. I remember I tried taking a bath. I tried just laying in all these different positions, and the pain just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. And I could hardly function. And so I didn't know what to do because they had told me not to come back until it had been 24 hours. And so I'm basically just trying to push through. I was up all night in pain. And then my husband at the time, he went in for PT. He was in the Army, so he didn't really have a choice about PT. So he went to PT in the morning, and I had been laying on the couch. And while he was at PT, basically I knew something wasn't right, and now we know, but I had an ectopic pregnancy, and so my fallopian tube had ruptured, and it ruptured when he was gone and I was home alone. So I had stood up to try to walk across the room to get my cell phone to call him or 911, something, because I felt like I was dying. And I stood up to go get my phone, which was across the room, and I guess I passed out. I don't really remember anything. And when he got home from work, I was unconscious on the floor. And so he rushed me into the emergency room. And when we got there, they literally had me wait in the waiting room. I was having contractions in the waiting room. My fallopian tube had ruptured. I was having internal bleeding, and they had me sitting in the waiting room with other people. And I was literally rolling on the floor because of the contractions and because of just my fallopian tube had just ruptured. And so finally I told them that I thought my appendix had burst, and because they just weren't taking me seriously. So they finally took me back, and I ended up going into emergency surgery, obviously, because there's nothing else to do at that point. So that was an incredibly low point in my life. And yeah, it was just a very traumatizing event. Not only is losing your baby traumatizing and a lot to go through, not only that, but I also had emergency surgery and knew that I got my right side taken out. So not only had I just had a miscarriage, but they also are telling me, you know, now the only way that you can even get pregnant is through your left side. And so it was just a lot to take in, at 19 years old, a lot to think through and process through when I was in an incredibly unhealthy relationship. And so fast forward through that, I won't give you any more details on that messy situation. We obviously did not stay together. We kind of went our separate ways a few months after that. And something that has stuck with me from that experience, and probably will for the rest of my life, is he had always accused me of getting rid of that baby and not wanting it, which is not possible with an ectopic pregnancy. But that was something that just was a lot for me, and I didn't realize that I carried into my relationship with Alex. So fast forward a few years, Alex and I got married, and we got married in 2017. And at this point, you know, none of my other siblings had had any kids. I'm one of the 11 for those of you that don't know. So I've always like had it in my mind that I was supposed to have a big family. I was gonna get pregnant young, have tons of kids, because that's just kind of how it's been through the generations. Is my mom was one of 8, and then she had /adopted 11 kids. So I just always felt like I was supposed to be a mom, and I was supposed to be a mom young, and I was gonna have all these kids. And yeah, so I got through that situation, and then Alex and I, we had been trying not to get pregnant. And when I was competing for a show, I think it was 2020, the very beginning of 2020. I was 7 weeks out from a show, and Alex and I had been married a few years by then, and we knew that we wanted to start trying for kids a little bit down the road. I wanted to compete in my competitions first, and then, you know, get my body into a good place and then have kids. So we were trying very hard not to get pregnant at that point. And then when I was 7 weeks out from a show, I found out that I was 7 weeks pregnant. So I found out, and then the very next day I ended up miscarrying. So that was kind of a whirlwind for me, just because we had been trying not to get pregnant, and then I found out that I was pregnant, and then the very next day I miscarried. So that whole pregnancy was just very, very different than the last time, just because I didn't have even time to, like, I guess fully even comprehend that I was pregnant, just because I had been competing and prepping for this show, and it wasn't expected. So basically at that point, I just realized that I just wanted to be done prepping. I wanted to get my body into a healthy place. And I think after you experience loss, it kind of makes you, at least for me, it made me want to get pregnant. So Alex and I decided, you know, maybe we do want to start trying. So I, at that point, started, you know, just focusing on getting my body in a really, really healthy place again. I was no longer prepping, none of that, just focusing on getting my body to a healthy body fat percentage, getting my hormones right. And a few months later, we found out that I was pregnant. So we found out that I was pregnant in the very beginning of March, I believe. No, February. We found out that I was pregnant in February, the end of February. And my oldest brother and his wife were pregnant with their first baby. So we were both pregnant at the same time, which was this crazy fun, like, dream of getting to be pregnant with one of your siblings. And these were going to be the first grandbabies on my family side. And so we're just over the moon excited. I think my sister and I were 5 weeks apart in our pregnancy, and everything was going great. I had a doctor that I was seeing regularly. I was getting my blood work done every single week. I was going for an ultrasound every other week, and everything looked fine. And I went into an appointment at 8 weeks, and they told me that the heartbeat was on the lower side. And so she wanted to see me the following week, and she didn't really say a whole lot. She just said the heartbeats look on the lower side, so I want you to come back next week. But she said everything else looks totally fine, looks normal. So that was on my mind a lot. And the night before my 9-week appointment, I was so dizzy, and I knew that was not a good sign. In certain cases, you know, that can be a sign of miscarriage. Didn't have any bleeding though, nothing like that. I literally just felt a little dizzy and then just nervous. But I thought, you know, that's normal. I've had 2 losses already. It's normal to feel nervous. So Alex and I went in to my appointment. That was during COVID, everything with COVID. So I had to go in alone, and Alex sat in the parking lot. And I get into that appointment, and she was not a very friendly doctor at all. So she's just going through taking a bunch of pictures, you know, doing the ultrasound. I can see the baby. And she prints out all these pictures and hands them to me. And as she's handing them to me, she says, "I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat." And I was just in shock, because she just handed me all these pictures and she was acting totally normal. And then she just said to me, you know, if you need to take a minute to get dressed and think about things, I'll be right outside. And she just walked out, and that's literally all that she said. So I'm obviously just in complete shock. So I walk out and I ask her, like, can you explain what just happened? Can we figure out what happened? Because this is my 3rd loss. And she looked at me and she said, well, your first loss was an ectopic pregnancy. It was not a regular miscarriage. So you need to have one more before we dig deeper into what's going on. And just walked away from me. So I had to walk out to Alex and tell him what had happened. And obviously, you know, going through that in general is just like the most traumatizing experience. And then having to walk out to your spouse and tell him, sorry, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever forget that day. I knew that this was a bad idea to do this while I'm pregnant, but anyways, that experience was just, I don't even have words for it. If you have experienced loss, I didn't even have to tell you, like, there's no words for that kind of pain. And yeah, there's just no words at all. And one of the hardest parts about that situation is that I obviously was pregnant at the same time as my sister-in-law. So, you know, walking through that, watching her continue to grow and her baby continuing to grow and her belly continuing to grow while I had lost mine was just one of the hardest parts about it, because obviously I'm thrilled for them and so excited for them, but to have been pregnant, you know, with her for several weeks and, you know, compare ultrasound pictures or compare how we were feeling, and then to just not be pregnant anymore and for her to still be pregnant. And obviously I saw her all the time. We live 15 minutes away from each other. Was just really, really hard. And I don't know. I don't even know how to explain how low I felt for months and months, and, you know, just experienced a pain unlike I had before. You know, this was by far more painful than anything I had been through, just because Alex and I's marriage was really good and we were in a really good place and we tried for this baby, and then we got pregnant right away. And I almost felt like I had failed again, because I had remembered everything that my ex had told me when we lost that baby, and I just felt like my life was kind of repeating. And so it put me in the darkest place I've ever been, and I'm just so thankful for the healing that I've experienced over the last few months, I guess over a year now, of just healing for my heart. And I remembered, you know, just how much pain it is every time you see a baby announcement, every time you see a gender reveal, every time one of your friends announces they're pregnant. Obviously you're so excited for them, but it's just painful. And I went from, you know, being the first kid in our family to be pregnant to my oldest brother had a baby, and then my younger brother had told me he was pregnant, and my sister told me she was pregnant. So I went from being, you know, the first one that was supposed to have a baby to now one of the last ones of the older kids to not have a baby. And it just was a lot for me. And it was a lot on Alex and I's relationship to have gone through both of those back-to-back losses, with being newly-ish married. And I just felt really lost because I wasn't competing anymore, so I wasn't shredded and strong. And then I also wasn't pregnant, so I just kind of hated my body, and I felt like I couldn't do anything. So fast forward to a lot of counseling, a lot of healing with Alex and I think seeing a therapist was the absolute best thing that I could have done. So I just would recommend, you know, finding somebody who specializes in loss, if you're currently going through this or if you have, because even though I hated going and I hated talking about it, I think it was the best thing that I could have done. And I never made it through a session without crying, and I never went when I I never wanted to go, but every time I went, I knew that it was good for me to talk about it, because I didn't want to talk to anybody about what had happened. So fast forward several months to November, December-ish, and Alex and I finally felt like we were at a place where we maybe wanted to try, and I felt terrified, but I really wanted to try again. And I didn't know what it was going to be like, because I'd already, you know, been pregnant 3 times, and 2 out of those 3 times we were trying not to get pregnant, and I still got pregnant. And then on the 3rd time, we got pregnant the first time we ever tried. So I just always gotten pregnant very, very easily. And, you know, I knew things were going to be different because I obviously only had my left side. So, you know, you're only supposed to ovulate every other month. So I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know how long it was going to take us to get pregnant. And I don't know if you guys even are interested in wanting to know, you know, what I did, because there were some things. I'd come up with a game plan with my doctor, and I had researched different things to try to get pregnant. So I can talk about that in a different vlog, because we did try a few different things, and I'm pretty confident that those things helped me get pregnant, because we started trying. We tried in December and January, and then January is when I really started looking into different things and started trying them in February, and then February is when you got pregnant with this little one. So I am currently 21 weeks pregnant with our little rainbow baby, and this is my 4th time being pregnant. So I will say, I don't think that anyone could have warned me enough for how anxious I would be through this pregnancy. And you know, I didn't even like fully accept that I was pregnant until I was probably like 11 weeks, I think, is when I started to realize, you know, this is real. And I still don't feel, I still have days where I'm just so convinced that something's wrong or something isn't right. And I will say, you know, being able to feel him now every single day, all the time kicking, is the best thing for my heart. But leading up to, you know, before I could feel him, I had no idea if things were okay or not. No idea. And you only really know if things are still okay, if they're still growing, you know, when you have those appointments, which are those doctor's appointments, which are very few and far between. So yes, I guess I have a happy story, and it even scares me to come on here and film this because I'm like, well, what if something does happen? But I just decided I want to share my story no matter what this pregnancy looks like. I want to share my story now, instead of being too scared and waiting until he's in my arms to share my story. So like I said, I don't know if this is going to be helpful or if it just, I don't know. I don't know if anybody wants to know this, but like I said, I think I felt so alone and just very alone and embarrassed of myself going through that. And so I want somebody to know that they're not alone. And if they're going through a loss or a miscarriage, I want to be able to just comfort them and let them know that they are not alone, that it's definitely more common than I ever thought it was. But no one really talks about it because for some reason we're ashamed of ourselves, and feel like we're the only ones that are going through this and that everybody else gets pregnant so easily. So I don't know, I've just been thinking about it for the last several weeks, and it's been on my heart more and more and more to talk about this. So I wanted to share this story, and like I said, I hope it's helpful. And if you're someone that is interested in knowing, you know, what little things I did to try and help get pregnant, I would love to talk about that in another vlog, but I don't want to keep this video going if that's just random and no one cares about that. So if you are interested in the little things that I did, I would love it if you could comment and let me know. But like I said, I just didn't want to add all of that into an already very long chat. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've just sat down and shared. I know I did share like a year and a half ago when I did pull out of prep because of that miscarriage, but I hadn't really talked about it since. And yeah, I've had a wild little ride, and this pregnancy has been a wild journey. And so yes, I hope you guys were able to find comfort in this if you're going through anything similar to my experience. And if you ever have any questions for me or anything like that, please comment below, or I'll even put my Instagram in here and you can shoot me a private message, because I would love to talk with you if you have any questions or if there's any way that I could, you know, support you or comfort you. But I appreciate you guys if you made it to the end, even watching this.